Hello there, everyone. Today, Kimbra and I are going to talk about a podcast called Call Her Daddy. And the way I found it, I was just researching and looking at other podcasts and kind of making comparisons to what Kimbra and I do. And I found this podcast titled Call Her Daddy. And it was two girls, younger girls. They are very raunchy. The girls, they're both beautiful young girls. Alex Cooper is the blonde and Sofia Franklyn is the brunette. And they were talking about just really like, Kimbra and I don't even talk about that.
We're too much of ladies.
It was just way too, I don't know, for me, and I think for you too, it was just way too raunchy and not necessary, but it was very entertaining. It's on a channel called Barstools, which is primarily men. So they were entertained. I was not into it, but I was into the story. So the
Of how
story
they got to be
goes,
so popular.
yeah. And then that's what I was investigating. Like, how are they so big? How are they so huge? Like they're having these horrible, disgusting conversations, which I guess, they're also, if you want to say, informative about for the younger generation and how dating works and everything. But, and I'm not a prude.
She's not. She's not a prude.
I'm not, but I just didn't, it didn't interest me. And maybe because I'm not a man, maybe doesn't interest most women.
Yeah, I
But,
don't know. That'd be a good podcast subject right there.
I think 90% men watch.
If you like our videos, go ahead and click on like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
90% men watched
Oh,
it
yeah.
at the time when it was on Barstools. So anyway, when they got hired, they were paid $75,000. They signed a 3-year contract and they were going to be paid $75,000 the first year, $85,000 the second year, and $100,000 the third year. Well, they soared. They were getting all these views. And so somebody said to them, hey, you're being taken advantage of. You need to renegotiate your contract. So Alex, the blonde, she was also doing the editing. So she had, I think, gone to Dave Portnoy, who was their boss, who owns the Barstools name. He went to him or he went to her one way or the other. Anyway, and he ended up paying her more money. And she never told Sofia that she was getting paid more money. So I thought that was a little snaky, not very nice.
But she deserves a little bit.
I think Sofia would have gone along with it.
Yeah.
But because Alex was doing more.
Right.
But just let her know. I mean, it doesn't have to be a secret. So anyway, there was that. So then they decided they're going to renegotiate. So they let some time go by. They had someone hired, an attorney or a manager or someone to draw up a contract, a new proposal of what they wanted. And they went and met with Dave Portnoy, and I think they were asking for $1 million, going high. That was the cap, what they wanted. And then a bunch of different points on the merchandising and other things. They wanted to own the Call Her Daddy IP and all that. So he refused. And then time went on and they kept doing the podcast, but they weren't happy about it. And he knew that. So then he came back and said, yes, that's fine. I'll give you guys what you want. And so when they met with him, Alex wanted to take the deal. She was like, oh my gosh, this is more than I can imagine. And Sofia didn't want to. And supposedly she had a boyfriend that was
some guy
her,
that
advising her.
Right.
And so when you look at the two sides of the story, I understand both points of view. It's one of those dilemmas where like both people are kind of right. Alex thought that was a generous offer, whereas Sofia said, no, my boyfriend knows about this stuff, or whoever, her agent, whoever, they know about this stuff. And we are still being cheated. We're still not being given everything we should be given. We created this brand. We made it what it is. We deserve a bigger portion of the pie. So you could say, oh, Sofia was being greedy. But on the other hand, she's comparing herself to what the men are making.
Right. She was just trying to take control,
yes,
of her own finances.
In the end, Alex went to Dave because she didn't want to blow it, because he was like, this is it. Because I guess he kept giving them what they wanted. And then Sofia would come back and say, well, we want this too. And we want this. And
she always had more.
And then, so he finally, was kind of done with them. And Alex went to him and made a deal on her own. She said, I want in. I want to be a part of this. I'm not going to walk away. Where Sofia was entertaining doing it somewhere else or something, starting over and doing a completely different podcast somewhere else. And Alex didn't want to do that. So she went behind Sofia's back, made the deal. Now she is doing Call Her Daddy. Sofia has a separate podcast on her own. In my opinion, Alex is not doing the raunchy thing anymore. She's interviewing famous people and interesting people. So I would be more interested in watching it. That's actually one of the first ones I saw, was some interesting people, interesting guests. And then Sofia is, I think, kind of still trying to do the same thing. So I feel like Alex got the better deal. She's doing the better show that I would be more interested in. Maybe, I'm sure Sofia still has a great audience. And,
so Alex is not doing the raunchy thing as much anymore with the new.
No, she's interviewing famous people. She just interviewed John Mayer. And I don't know if she just did, but I saw that one and some other people that I can't think off the top of my head.
I know she did Miley Cyrus, I believe. Was it Miley? I think she interviewed Miley Cyrus.
And they're more, they're still their language. Like on YouTube, you can't swear now.
Right.
But we're not big on
swearing people.
She get me mad. But like,
then she swears like a sailor.
Everyday language. Yeah, but get me mad and I'll go there. But I think it seems like it's part of their everyday language, and that's part of the appeal, is that they're whatever.
Yeah, they're real raunchy. Right.
So I think it's still, not as mainstream and polite. But I think she's interviewing famous people, which is really what made the difference for her.
Right.
And then Sofia, I don't know. What do you think about the whole thing? You know the story too. So what do you think?
I thought it was, I was fascinated, like you, like we were joking on the phone, like we would have taken that money.
I know. We're like, we're not going to go behind each other's back. We're going to call each other and celebrate.
Yeah. No negotiations. Right. Just give me the money. Show me the money. Yeah. But, I mean, it's hard, as we've talked about this. It's hard to do creative things together with people in any capacity. Right. Mm-hmm. But just to be, you got to be more upfront. And, like you said, if one's doing the editing and they feel like they need more money, which is, it's a skill and it definitely deserves to be paid for. So, but just be honest about it. Or if another person's doing something else that she feels is bringing to the table, like talk about it. Yeah. And then
which is what we've done. I mean, we've argued through everything we've done. We've had arguments and disagreements, and well, I think we should do it this way, and I think we should do it that way. And even, I do all of our editing, and I went to you one day and I'm like, I can't do everything. And you're like, well, what can you do? And so we always end up working it out instead of, I don't know. I just think it was really shady to go behind her back. But if Sofia was being so stubborn that she was going to blow it for them, what do you do? You got $500,000 in front of you. Cause I guess if they got the $1 million, they were going to each get 500,000.
Oh, they were going to get $1 million up front and then like 75 a year.
Like $1 million a year.
Oh, okay.
Can you imagine?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I take 500,000.
Yeah. But it just cracks me up that like that show, they hit a market and a niche. They found a target market, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things where when people start getting greedy but in defense of Sofia, you understand who's really being greedy. Dave Portnoy.
That's true.
Who is the mastermind of all this, who wants to keep most of the money for himself, or, the girls, or Sofia. And then,
because I think he wanted the intellectual properties and the he wanted to keep all that stuff.
It's Call Her Daddy doesn't exist without those two.
Right.
At least one of them. Now Alex has proven it does exist with one of them. Mm-hmm. But they had the magic, and it's a different show now. It's not what it was before. But
did you like it with just her?
I liked it better with just Alex because it wasn't as raunchy. It wasn't my kind of show. When they were, and I feel like it's almost contrived. It's like too much of the F word and too much of the sex and
right.
Meant it was almost contrived, meant for shock value. That's what didn't work for me.
It wasn't tasteful.
Well, not only not tasteful, because I'm not always the classiest person in the world. I mean, I'm not really a snobby person trying to impress anybody with class, but because I try to be genuine and real too, but it just seemed too much. It was over the top and
forced.
meant to, yes, forced is a good word, and contrived. So for me in that way, it didn't work, but they had a huge audience. Who am I to say? It just didn't work for me, but I'm, you know,
I know I often debate that, like, can I sacrifice my ethics and morals for the money?
About that, we talk about like, well, let's just do it for the show or whatever. And in the end, we want to be who we are. We don't want to put something forth that's not really who we are.
And I think that resonates. I mean, maybe for a good enough actress, I guess you can do it, you know, where you can pretend like this is, you know, but so maybe
you lose what it is, because a podcast is really about who we are, and it's genuine and in the moment.
Right.
And so I don't know. Good for them, you know, good for them for having that audience and being entertaining to men when they were doing the raunchy stuff with Call Her Daddy. And both gone off on their own. And I see Sofia's doing interviews on other people's podcasts, and I would love to chat with her and hear what she has to say. She has a very interesting upbringing. She grew up in Utah, and she was, I think, from a Mormon family, or there are a lot of Mormons in Utah. And then she went to Catholic school, and you know, I'm sure that influenced her. Maybe she's rebelling, you know, coming out.
And maybe she'd like to be on our podcast, and we can ask her.
Yes, Sofia, we would love to chat with you and let you tell your side of the story.
Right.
Because we'd love to hear, you know, what she has to say and what her thought was. Because I've seen her kind of tell the story, but what was going on in her mind that she wanted more. And I don't really think it was just greed. I think it was that she's being advised, and they're saying, you deserve more. More money is going to be made, you know, if they're going to make 50 million and they're only going to give you one, you and Alex, then why wouldn't you ask for more? I would ask for more too. In that case, you want your share, you know, fair share. So it could be that, but I don't think that she's, you know, that's being said. It's just everybody made it seem like she's just greedy, or being manipulated by the boyfriend.
Yeah, ill-advised. But yeah, I wonder if they're still together, you know?
Yeah, no, from what because I was trying to learn more about this story, knowing we were going to talk about it. They're not together anymore. And again, she's just doing her own thing, her own podcast. And I saw an interview with her on TMZ, who they seemed to side with her.
With Alexandra?
Sofia. No, Sofia. And so, and Alex is fine. Alex is doing awesome. Alex is on interviews with other people too. And I find them both beautiful and delightful to watch. So I'm just disappointed that they weren't able to do something together, to stay together and do it.
And good for them that, you know, that they were able to create this podcast that was so successful just from you, kind of similar to what you and I were, you know.
Well, and break down the barriers, because a lot of the most successful podcasts are men interviewing, and because men tend to do the more, well, either they'll do the guy thing, or they've got a lot of the intellectuals on. And you and I are always saying, we don't know scientists. We want to get a scientist to
right.
Interview.
We want some intellectuals.
Yeah, well, something that would be interesting to us too.
Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you're out there, we want you on.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime. As if he wants to come on our podcast.
Yeah, you never know.
But it's a really interesting world. You know, it's interesting that podcasts have changed the entertainment world and what people, you know, are, because I also feel like anytime you can be entertained and learn at the same time.
Right.
I love that. And the fact that, you know, who started podcasts was Adam Curry, who was the MTV host.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw him on Joe Rogan about this, and he did the first podcast. He started podcasting.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
And Joe Rogan, he's very smart. Another very smart guy. You wouldn't know that. He was a VJ on MTV.
How dare he?
He's very, very smart. And Joe Rogan interviewed him. And of course, Joe Rogan took podcasts to another level because of what we've talked about before. He's just so down to earth, and they're just good conversations. That people would
and he's smart too, you know, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I realized after, I mean, I always thought he was bright, but like I said, I told you I saw him on that Lex Friedman podcast, and I realized because it got to be more about him as opposed to his guests.
Yep.
So he's an entertaining guy. I can see why he got the gig, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he kind of made the gig. He created it himself, you know, just playing around. He said, I never expected this to turn into what it is.
That's true. What was that show he did before that? Remember it was all that activities, you know, I can't think, I didn't watch it.
I forget the name.
Fear Factor? Was it Fear Factor?
Fear Factor. Yeah. Fear Factor.
Activities.
Yeah, he was the host of Fear Factor. And he was on some TV series before, and he is the MC of the UFC shows. He was very much into martial arts and stuff. And he's had an interesting, you know, he's done a lot of different things in his career, but the podcast was not planned to be so successful. He was doing it kind of on a whim and to have fun. And he wasn't, from what I've heard, I mean, he might say otherwise, but from what it seems like, he just was playing around and it turned into magic, you know, it turned into something really golden for him.
Yeah. I mean, lucky him, you know, I mean, but he said some interesting things, like I said, on the Lex Friedman one about, you know, his relationship to, because you know, he works out so much. I thought it was more about staying in shape, but he equates it to helping your mind and that you should be more balanced by, you know, being outside, and we're too sedentary, you know, and I thought I agree with that. So it was just, you know, it was interesting to hear his take on things.
He's big on health. Yeah. He's really big on health.
So anyway.
So about podcasting, we encourage people to find their own favorite podcast. And we wanted to just mention this story about Call Her Daddy, because it's not actually a podcast that I watch, or I don't think Kimbra watches, but it was an interesting story and a kind of test of a friendship. They're not friends anymore. They were best friends. They were roommates, which is so sad to have happen. And when I first told you about this story, we were both like, we wouldn't let that happen to us. We would take the money. And we'd be like, okay, sign us up.
Yeah, there would be no doubt about that.
Yeah. But I think they're both doing fine. I think they're both, but it's just, you know, like for you and I think part of doing this podcast is because we have fun together too. It's two friends doing something fun, and now they don't have that, because it would feel more like work to do it by yourself, I think.
That's true. When you have a friend, I think, which is another podcast we're going to talk about after, you know, another time. The Pete and Sebastian one we're going to talk about another time. But I enjoy seeing two people together because you can bounce off people. It's, you know, Joe Rogan, he has those interesting guests. So, but he's probably got his little sidekick people that help him, right? On Joe Rogan, he's got like a person that works there. But it's hard.
He has
it's hard
people that fact check for him, and he's probably got people that do the lighting and set up the camera and all that. But I feel like, at least for me, you know, a lot of times the conversations we have on the podcast are just like on the phone. I remember one time we had that conversation on the phone. I go, Kimbra, we should have recorded this. People would find this interesting. We were talking about Tommy Lee's wife and her podcast,
Brittany,
and then Nikki Sixx's wife, the podcast that I saw with those two together. And I just found them both delightful.
Yeah. They're interesting. And Brittany's so funny. I mean, I follow her on Instagram. I told you, and she's on some show. I don't even know the show. I got to find the show that she's on, but I don't know how often it's on, if it's on YouTube, but she puts little clips on her Instagram, and she's just really funny. A little raunchier than me, but she's funny.
Well, she's got to interview Alex and Sofia.
I know.
They need to interview her.
Her comedy bits. She's brave. You know, some of the things she says, but it's good. It's just.
Well, it could be a generational thing too. They're a lot younger. I think they're in their 20s.
Yeah.
And so it's probably a generational thing too, where, you know, and I go back and forth because I think, well, more power to them. You know, it's okay for men to do that and talk like that. And,
that's true.
So why can't women? Well, you know, why?
It's like, you know, is it a hang up of mine that I, you know, always don't want to cuss too much? You know, I always feel like people are my mom used to always say, it's like when you cuss too much, or some people believe that when you cuss too much, you sound uneducated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but I do love saying a good cuss word now and again. I just don't
it's
want
a
to
good
say
release.
it. Yeah.
And I find that if you say those words too often, they lose their power when you're mad.
Yeah.
So then you have to say 5 of them in a row when you're really mad. So you want to save it up so that it has an impact and it works. Because the truth is, it's to release frustration. It's like you're letting out your frustration. You're like, I'm going to say this horrible word. But if you use it all the time, then it just loses its power.
Especially for me, like, I feel like, because I don't cuss that much, so that when I do, I'm like, then it really shows I am mad. You know,
she means it. She never says that word.
So that's why I don't cuss. But then I'm always like, am I too prudish? I'm not prudish, but am I too uptight about that stuff, like cussing and talking about?
I don't question myself in that way. I don't think I am, but I again, it's just, I think it's a generational thing, and I'm not sure if the younger generation is going to regret taking the power out of it. Well, like the word bitch, which with a B. So I don't know if you're allowed to say it on YouTube. I don't think you are, but probably like that word has been watered down so that it doesn't mean like at one time it was like horrible. You call a woman that and she's really horrified. And now it's like, yeah, whatever. And we call each other that and ourselves that. And so by using that word, we've taken the power away from it. So
that's true. Or the word, should I say it? CUNT. You know,
people don't use that word a lot. So
they do, I guess. It used to really, when people would say, if I ever heard that word, I'd be like, oh my God, don't say that word. But I guess in England, they use that word a lot. Like it's more common, like bitch. And so now it doesn't quite as offend me as it used to. But I remember when I first would hear it, I'm like, oh my God.
Because it's almost like my ears hurt.
And it's like a little offensive to me. But now it doesn't bug me as much because it still is a strong word. You know, I just feel like it's a strong word. But again, I heard in England and maybe Australia too, like it's kind of more like just like the other word, bitch, you know?
Well, it's true because it just, once you start using it all the time, it loses its power.
Right.
And that's what by swearing all the time, what are you gonna do when you get mad then?
Right.
Like, what are you gonna then have to get violent and throw things to,
and I will.
No. So I like saving up those words for when I'm really mad.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, so we recommend we don't recommend the podcast. We recommend what they've done. We recommend
the Call Her Daddy podcast if you're interested.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Good
it's
interviews.
Changed now. Yeah.
And then with Sofia, from what I've seen, I think she's still trying to do the raunchy thing and trying to, monetize what they were doing before. And I could be wrong. Maybe she's changed it up. And I only saw a couple of the podcasts, but it wasn't my cup of tea. But hey, if it's your cup of tea, maybe she has a big male audience and the guys are eating it up.
I don't know about.
It's been reported that Alex finished out her contract with Barstools for the Call Her Daddy podcast, and then Spotify offered her a $60 million exclusive deal. So she has continued to do the podcast under the Spotify brand, and that's, I believe, when she started doing all of the celebrity interviews. So it's really pretty much a different podcast, but she's still doing great, and it's a good podcast.
And then Sofia hopefully is doing well too. Because she just was trying to stand up for herself. And it was a matter of Sofia was willing to start over and rebuild the brand, a new brand, whereas Alex wanted to just keep going with what they were going. So really, I don't think either one of them's in the wrong. I just think it would have been better to be up front for Alex to have said to Sofia, listen, Sofia, I'm going to take it.
Right.
I'm going to take the deal. You're on your own. Instead, she was a little sneaky about it, which I don't respect that. Right. I understand why she wanted to, but I don't think she went about it the right way.
Right. And show business, unethical or sneaky.
Because Sofia might have said, okay, then my option is to go off on my own and start alone or go with you, even though I don't feel like it's the best deal we can get. That would have given her more of a choice. And I think they still would have had that 2-person magic instead of just Alex having to carry it on her own. But she's doing okay. She's doing fine. So
cool. All right. Well, I'm not feeling sorry for them because they both have, good starts. So
Exactly. Okay, everyone. Well, thanks for listening in and joining us. And check out Call Her Daddy if you're interested. And Sofia with an F.
right.
Sofia, Sofia Franklyn, and check out their videos and see what you think.
And if you guys want to come on ours, Sofia or Alex,
Or Alex, yes, you are invited, open invitation. And we would love to hear the audience's opinions. If you want to share with us in the comments of what you think, if you're familiar with these.
Yeah. What do you think of their shows?
Podcasts.
Yeah.
Let us know.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.